WYSL.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wolf, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate y'all being here. We're live here on WYSL until 1 p.m., so give us a call if you'd like to participate in the conversation. We have a nice little scrolling banner if you're listening online. 866-552-1009. It's 866-552-1009. Live on WYSL until 1 p.m. So again, give us a call. Shout down the line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark. Appreciate y'all being here too. And if you are listening online, not only can you call in, you can comment too. Leave a good comment. Maybe we'll read it on the air, have a good discussion. Either way, no matter where you're listening, appreciate y'all being here. And it is Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day, depending on where you fall in the cultural battles today. You know, I do not particularly want to take a side in this cultural war. But here we are. We're forced to take a side in these things all the time. But it's all right. So let's talk about that, because this is a time when everyone gets to go and well, pardon the phrase, but butcher history on every side of this thing. So we're going to spend the first segment talking about it because, you know, it's Columbus Day. People want to talk about what he did and whether or not we should celebrate the guy, and, you know, whether or not we should be doing Indigenous Peoples Days and all that stuff. Okay, so let's do it. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. I feel like I do this every year now, but I want to talk about him. So Christopher Columbus, as a reminder, he Italian explorer. He was contracted by Spain to go and find a route to Asia, right? They wanted to find a cheaper and easier way to get over to Asia to trade spices and all sorts of stuff, right? So the idea was, well, maybe we can go the other way. At this point in time, people knew that the world was round. You know, people think, oh, Columbus, everyone thought the world was flat, and Columbus was, you know, one of the believers who thought the world was round. No, it's not. It's not how that actually happened. He actually miscalculated the distance that it would take to get over to Asia, and people thought, well, there's no way we can sail over there because we've been able to calculate how big the world is, and you would most likely starve to death or, you know, die in any number of other ways before getting over to Asia. There's no way you can sail all the way the heck over there and not run out of supplies, not run out of water, food, etc. But you got that chance, did it, went over, thought he was in, you know, India, basically, West Indies, and then once he got there, he proceeded to be a huge jerk. That's what it is. That is a historical fact. He went and tried to exploit the natives who lived there for gold, because he assumed that would be part of it. He also tried to enslave people. Not try, he did, and many of those people died in the process. Columbus committed genocide. He was part of that. You know, I don't particularly like celebrating Columbus Day for that reason. I don't really think that the statues are necessary. I don't think he's a dude worth celebrating. I think he's a bad dude. That's just based on what it was. Now, and again, did he discover America? No, it's kind of here. There's already people here, you know, whatever. He discovered it for the European. This is one of those semantic fights that we have every year now. Becomes a Democrat-Republican thing. You know, did he discover America? Was America already here? No, of course, people are here, so he didn't discover it. But he did kick off a wave of discovery for the Europeans who were not totally aware that there is a continent quite a bit ways west of them that they could go to, and that there were resources on and people and all that stuff. They weren't aware of that. And I know there's Leif Erikson stuff who went over quite a few hundred years earlier, right? Went to Newfoundland and whatnot. And actually, that's who I talked about last year's Leif Erikson for Leif Erikson Day. But yeah, there's again all this stuff caught in politics now, like the transit, like why you're seeing on your calendars and everything now, Indigenous Peoples Day, is that people don't want to celebrate Columbus any further. They don't want to give a national holiday to a guy who had did quite a few bad things. Again, enslaving people, hurting them, murdering them, stealing their resources. Not a great dude. The politics behind Columbus Day is fascinating too, because it was a way to reach out to like Italian Americans originally, right? That was the way that the government tried to bring Italian Americans into the fold and make them feel more American, because there's the complicated politics of whether or not Italians were considered really fully American for a long time. It's something that we take for granted nowadays. That for a very long time in American history, Italians were, uh, you know, not considered fully part of the American experience, even if they had been here a couple generations. That's kind of changed. Um, and well, that's interesting. Shelley says, people on the left and the right are just understanding that Mexicans are Native Americans. Well, I mean, sort of, yeah. Like it sometimes. It's well, again, a race and native culture and the mix of Spanish, French, and like African culture that existed in Central America is complicated as heck. And they understand all that stuff much differently in places like Mexico and other parts of Central America and South America than they do here. So yeah, like a lot of Mexicans are Native American, and a lot of them, have various degrees of Native American heritage mixed with Spanish heritage, mixed with French heritage, mixed with African heritage. And it's just a whole thing. And a lot of people in the United States also integrated in with native cultures and took ideas from those native cultures and, mixed cultures here. They are totally native to America. I mean, yeah, sure, Shelley. I don't know what that means, but thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. But we think about that. There's this weird idealization of native culture that goes along with Indigenous Peoples Day. It's like, oh my goodness, these people were taking care of the land and they were peaceful, and then the Europeans came and ruined all that. Like that's also not how this worked either. They're just like in Europe, there were complicated competing cultural and tribal groups that would jockey for power and kill each other and do terrible things to each other. And they were also having their own ecological issues here too. And again, none of that ought to be used in the way some terrible people do to justify how Europeans purposely spread diseases in some cases, or how colonization worked out, or how enslavement worked out, or how any of this stuff happened. But it's also not as romantic. They weren't living in perfect harmony with the environment. They weren't living in perfect harmony with one another. It was groups of people, just like was happening in Europe. Because in Europe at this time, it wasn't the nations that you think of today. It was the concept of nationalism wasn't even there yet. It was a bunch of microstates all over the place. And okay, so I'll get this follow-up comment from Charlie. She's saying Texas, California, etc. were Mexican states that we took. Okay, thanks for a clarification. Yeah, that's yeah, it's part of it. That's the United States took over some of those states following the war in Mexican-American war in 1848. That's about when it was. But anywho, as we look at this stuff, you can think for yourself. You don't have to get caught up in these cultural wars. I like reading about first contact stuff. I mean, it's terrible, but first contact stuff with Columbus, with North America, with indigenous people, the genocide of indigenous people, sometimes on purpose, sometimes an accident. All this stuff is worth knowing and understanding how that informs the culture that we have today. Because again, the ways in which American culture is impacted by native culture is huge. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy was used in part for inspiration for the U.S. Constitution, the federalism that they had, their ability to advocate for their own nations within that Iroquois culture was a huge part of that. So that's how I always take these days. Like, again, I get why Columbus Day was formed. I don't particularly like national holidays in any sense. I get why Indigenous Peoples Day is a thing. But when I want to look at the actual history, both the good, bad, and ugly, and there's a lot of ugly in that, let's be realistic about it. Where did these ideas come from? How did these people actually interact with one another 500 years ago? And how does that still impact us today? All good things to reflect on today and things to think about. You don't need to get caught up in the cultural wars to think about, reflect, and appreciate all that history. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. When we come back, I will be moving on to a different topic. I'm going to talk about what's going on with the ports and why some goods are getting held up. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back in just a few minutes on A Free Solution.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Inside the Taylor Laboratories.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
A little experiment, Zach. Look what I have under the microscope.
Ugh, what's that?
A sample of indoor air.
How can it be that dirty? Don't AC and furnace filters help?
Only with dust, Zach. But when Taylor installs a whole house APCO air purifier to detox the air, odors, chemicals, mold, bacteria, and viruses are removed.
For clean indoor air.
Yep. Ain't science awesome?
Taylor, 500 help.
A message from the National Police Association. It used to be that any able-bodied person would offer to assist a police officer in danger. Now, passers-by are more likely to take a video. There's a better use for your phone when an officer's in trouble. Call 911. Tell the operator where you are and what you see. Then, start your video to provide evidence later. To learn more about how you can assist law enforcement, visit nationalpolice.org. That's nationalpolice.org.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us. Again, we're live here on WYSL until 1 p.m. So give us a call if you want to participate in the show. Give us a call 866-552-1009. That is 866-552-1009. Appreciate y'all being here wherever you're listening. Make sure you leave your comments online too if you're listening and have something to say in relation to this conversation. I was talking about the Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day stuff in the first segment. If you missed that, you can always go back to our Facebook page or YouTube channel, check those out, or look for our podcast, A Free Solution, wherever you can listen to podcasts. You can find those there. My annual history soapbox on a historically significant day. But I want to move on to more current events now. I want to talk about what's going on with getting stuff. Some of you may have noticed, when you go to the store, just stuff's the shelves are a little bit more bare than they were a couple years ago. When you try to order something, instead of being able to get something within a few days or the next day, it gets extended out a little bit more, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple days. Maybe if you're ordering something like furniture, maybe in a few months. Try to order that custom couch, and for some folks, it's going to be a while. It's going to take a bit to make it. Tim says it's because of COVID. Now, Tim, I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but it is in part because of COVID. But it's more like COVID exacerbated a whole bunch of issues that were already there, and our political leadership is incapable of solving those issues, right? And I know the temptation is to say this is Joe Biden's fault. It is partially, but it's not just his fault. It's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of policies, all across the country, to that end up making the process of getting stuff more difficult than it needs to be. And so the effect that we see is that in the store, you're just finding things like, where are the paper towels? Where's the toilet paper? Are people making a run on toilet paper again? Well, no, not exactly. But you go to some of these places and they're starting to set limits on how many things you can buy because they're worried that people are going to panic, buy toilet paper again, like they did at the beginning of COVID. Don't worry. I'm sure all those folks still have plenty of TP left because they bought enough to last them several years. I would hope. You guys doing okay out there? You TP hoarders, I hope you're doing fine. Hope you're doing great. Hope that all that good investment has paid off for you. No, but it's not any one thing. It is a series of bad policies that are making things slightly more difficult. And it's Biden, it's Trump, it's local policies, it's unions, it's COVID too. Let's talk about the COVID part of this, right? Because so part of this is COVID, right? So part of this is that around the world, U.S. manufacturing, overseas in Asia, right? If you have a factory and you have an illness in your factory, that's going to, at best, slow down production. At worst, halt what you're doing for months, weeks, months. Who knows? If half your workforce gets sick, that's a big deal. If a couple people get sick, that's depending on your government's policies, you might still be limited in your ability to make stuff. And so that's certainly something that happened in China. A lot of factories got shut down temporarily. In Vietnam, they're still going through Delta variant stuff. In India, same thing. All these countries are going through these issues where, because of either government policy over there or to legitimately protect the health and well-being of workers, production has either been slowed because workers are out or because they're spacing people out more or whatever, or it's shut down completely. And so what happens is that delay stacks and stacks and stacks on each other, right? So, if I order a table from overseas, some furniture company over here orders a table and they say, well, okay, we've sold all of our tables. The distribution company of whatever furniture company is, we've sold all of our tables. So in order to get more tables, it's going to take another 3 months now because their factory's closed. They're going to be opening up in a couple weeks. So we got to get that. And then we've got to ship it overseas and it's got to be unloaded at the port. And then it's got to be shipped over to distribution centers and then shipped out to the store itself. That whole thing takes a bunch of time. There things like just-in-time shipping are kind of like breaking down a little bit. It's crazy how fragile and how complex the process of getting stuff is. The logistics of making sure that stores don't have to use a bunch of their space to just keep a bunch of stuff on hand. They don't want to do that. that space is precious. That space is opportunities to carry other goods and to sell more stuff. So they want to get that stuff just in time, just enough to sell what they need to sell between shipments and then not run out. But if you get a break in that chain somewhere where suddenly things take a few days longer, you start to see empty shelves. And you have lots of those breaks happening because of COVID. Now, there are things that we can do to relieve that. So what y'all may have seen is that there is a bunch of stuff stuck at the ports on the West Coast, specifically the Port of Los Angeles. Specifically that port, which is the one that is deep enough to carry these crazy massive shipping ships, these shipping containers, the ones where you see hundreds and hundreds of those shipping containers on them. That is those things which only a few ports can handle, ships that are that deep, that go that far down. That's where a lot of stuff is getting held up. It's that. Now, why is it getting held up, right? So, okay, we've eliminated, not that we've eliminated the bottleneck of stuff getting onto those ships in the first place when it's being manufactured overseas, but okay, now you got a bunch of it just stuck at the port. Well, why is that happening? Well, part of it is that unlike a lot of ports over in Europe, these ports, they don't operate 24 hours. Unions have fought for this. They don't want to do that. So now you have this backup where stuff isn't getting unloaded all day long. You don't have a C shift with these things. It's also just difficult to hire new workers when unions control that process. Again, I get what unions are trying to do here. I get that unions are trying to do. I'm sympathetic. Again, I have family members who are unions. I have friends who do this stuff. I get what they're trying to do. It's just that with them involved in this process in this way, it becomes difficult to hire new people. And, if you get things like strikes, that slows it down even further. You have all of these different bottlenecks here. And then same thing, trucking industry. Tough to hire those workers right now for a bunch of complicated reasons. It is tough to hire trucking workers. Part of that is regulations. Some of those regulations are well intended and meant to protect drivers and to protect people on the road. I understand that, but it's tough to hire that. It's expensive to hire drivers. They're incredibly in demand right now. So a lot of companies are like, all right, we have all this stuff that people want to move, but they're not able to hire the drivers to move it. There's actually a local story about this recently. I'll see if I can find the link and post it. And I understand this stuff. I've seen what that recruiting process looks like. It's difficult, and that's part of the why can't you hire truckers? Was it related to the unemployment stuff? Well, maybe if wages aren't going all that up for truckers, if you're comfortable on unemployment, you're making enough to get by, and you don't have to work this difficult job with difficult hours, and the trucking logistics company, maybe some of them aren't paying you what you think you want enough to move you. Well, that's tough. That's how do you fill that? If they're not able to get the contracts to do that, to be able to pay people what they're asking for now, that's another step that grinds to a halt. Where even once you get into the port, how do you get it from there to where it needs to go next? Also a couple freight issues, freight rail issues too. There's all these things that are happening. It's not any one thing. It's not just Joe Biden. It's not just, California doing their nonsense. It's not just Trump, although tariffs are also making things interesting too, because, if you have tariffs on goods coming from China, well, that's one other difficulty that you have. Either you raise the price of goods coming in, or people find a way around it, right? They go to another country and see if they can import it there and then ship it up to the United States, adding even more cost. All right, thanks again for joining us on The Free Solution. When we come back, I want to talk about, what are some of the solutions to this? What are some of the ways that people are reacting? Can markets and liberty solve this issue? All right, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in a few minutes. Give us a call if you want to participate. 866-552-1009. That's 866-552-1009. We'll be back in just a few minutes on A Free Solution.
Fly the flag, stand for freedom. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. Partly cloudy skies will drop down near 60 for Tuesday. Another beautiful day coming up. Good deal of sunshine, just a couple of wispy clouds here and there. Another warm one. Highs close to 80 degrees on Wednesday. Partly to mostly cloudy. Just an isolated shower threat. Not quite as warm, but still very mild in the low 70s. I'm Rich Canilia, WYSL.
FM Talk. What's with those injury attorney TV ads these days? Seems like they're in a race to see who can put more lawyer faces on the screen. Even with an 80-inch TV, you can't make them out. What's the point? Maybe they're trying to impress with who's biggest, but it ends up looking like an undergrad photo in your school yearbook, or maybe a dating site from hell. Of course, the one attorney that matters to you is the one who's helping you put your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or handling your DWI defense. Christopher Johnson makes you feel like you're his only client, because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. Write this number down. Keep it in your car. 415-3803. 415-3803. At this number, instead of getting lost in the crowd, you'll get individual attention, integrity, experience, and expertise. Write it down. 415-3803. Put the power of one on your legal team. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson, attorney. Personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI defense.
At Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Anthony Drive off Route 96 in Victor. They'll help you get ready for winter driving with America's favorite four-wheel drive vehicles, like the 21 Jeep Gladiator Freedom Edition Crew Cab 4x4 pickup, $349 a month for 42 months. A 21 Jeep Grand Cherokee L Limited 4x4 is just $399 a month for 42 months. Must be returning lessee. The 2021 Jeep Renegade Latitude 4x4 is only $199 a month for 42 months. Must have Stellantis loyalty and be returning lessee. The 21 Ram 1500 Classic Warlock Quad Cab 4x4 pickup is just $179 a month for 36 months. Must have Stellantis loyalty and be returning lessee. Use 2 Ram coupons while supply lasts. Jeep, America's iconic four-wheel drive brand. $2,500 cash for trade and other conditions apply. Get full details from the dealer. Equipment and MSRP vary by model. We're here to fully serve Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram customers in Victor, Canandaigua, Macedon, Fairport, and throughout the Metro and Finger Lakes. Winter's coming. Get the safety and security only Jeep can give. Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 6560 Anthony Drive in Victor.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
When you need contracting work done around your home or business, it's frustrating to find someone with the expertise, experience, and versatility that's just right. Chamberlain Construction to the rescue. Chamberlain's done it all, commercial and residential, and you name it, Chamberlain can do it. Roofing, siding, kitchens, baths, decks, porches, remodeling, bump outs, stores, garages, with the best in materials and workmanship. Over 30 years of reliable, ethical experience anywhere in our region. Chamberlain Construction, Dansville, 370-5959, 370-5959. Contact Lee Chamberlain, Lee at chamberlainconstruction.com. Spelled chamber
Most cases of rabies in the U.S. have been caused by the rabies virus from bats. If a bat gets into your house, never touch the bat with bare hands. Use leatherwork gloves. Collect a coffee can or small box and a strong piece of cardboard. Approach the bat slowly with gloves and place the container over it. Then slide the cardboard underneath to trap the bat. Tape the container securely and call the Livingston County Health Department at 243-7280. Avoid contact with bats. They can pose a health hazard to you, your family, and pets.
My name is Stephanie Ingalls, and I'm a team member at Tom Walls Brayton. I take the extra time to make real old-fashioned milkshakes with ice cream and milk produced by upstate New York farmers. Will you take the time to stop in at Tom Walls and enjoy real milkshake? Moo!
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us. We're live here on WYSL until 1 p.m. So that means that, again, you, the listener, can give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Appreciate y'all being here, being a part of the show. Shout out down the line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark. Appreciate y'all. And our friends listening online. Free Solution, the Facebook page, Free Solution, the YouTube channel, and the Kevin Wilson pages. Wherever you're listening today, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. You guys rock. And speaking of comments, again, another comment from Shelly saying it's a collective fault with all this stuff we're talking about with the lack of goods coming in to this country. The shelves they're not quite bare, just like a little more bare than they used to be. Things are taking a little bit longer. And it's not like it's a crisis yet, but any more disruptions to supply chains could quickly become a crisis because, as I pointed out when I started talking about this stuff, our shipping and logistics infrastructure is pretty fragile. You don't realize that there's not some big warehouse of stuff most of the time to replace the things on your shelves, that things run out pretty quickly. And that efficiency makes a lot of sense. There's not a lot of redundancy built into the system. It makes things cheaper. It makes storage more effective. But when something goes wrong, it can quickly go wrong everywhere very quick. Tim says, buy furniture from the Amish. Yeah, that's something you could do. Absolutely. Go ahead. Buy furniture from the Amish, buy furniture locally, whatever you want to do. So that there are a number of solutions that we could have here. Some of which are to buy things locally. Try to get there's some problems with that. And I'll get to those. You could deregulate, or you can find another way to ship stuff. And that last point is kind of related to the second point. But let's take Tim's things first. So buy furniture from the Amish. So that's great. You know, like something to do if it is made all from local materials, is made from local wood. That's cool. But remember, you know, disruptions to the supply line. The lumber prices are still higher than they were a few years ago. They still have to source that raw material from somewhere. If there aren't many mills in the U.S. that are able to produce furniture, if you're not able to get either that raw cut furniture, or you're not able to get, kind of a more finished wood that would be appropriate for the manufacture of furniture or upholstery or nails or any of these other things, capitalism is complicated, right? So, okay, where are you going to get this stuff? If we don't have that domestic manufacturing supply anywhere near here, where is it going to come from instead? You know, we import a lot of our lumber from Canada. We, where they have different mills, different regulations. We import a lot of, things like nails and screws. Import that from China in some cases. Not always, but the stuff's still got to come in from somewhere. That we're still making stuff overseas because, at least until this moment, it's made more sense to go and do that because domestic regulations and labor markets mean that it is cheaper to make things all the way around the world and put them in a big efficient shipping container and then have them come into, the port at Long Beach and then truck them up here or wherever, it could come from the other side of the world too. But at least a couple years ago, it made sense to do that this way. Maybe it doesn't anymore. So what are we what do we do here? Well, we need to increase our capacity to manufacture domestically. Now, this is what Donald Trump was trying to do when he was president. The problem is that the protectionist mindset that he took to this ended up being destructive to that end. Because we have tariffs on steel, it made it more difficult to get more supplies to be able to make the end products that we need. Because we have more tariffs on China, same thing. Is that even when stuff is made in the US, whether it's cars or washing machines or furniture or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that every single part that goes into that process was made in the US. And if they can't get the parts that make up the whole for you to buy that end good, well, that's a problem. They're not going to be able to make the thing. They won't have the supplies to make the furniture, the computers, the, whatever other manufactured product, even if it's made in the US, for you to be able to go and purchase on the store shelves. It ain't there. Actually, so I'm gonna recommend this too, because I'm talking about the complexity of the economy. If you have never read it, go read I, Pencil. I'm sure I do this like once a quarter, right? I tell you to go read I, Pencil, but go read I, Pencil. It talks about like no any one person, no any one entity is responsible for directing everyone to create everything that goes into a pencil. Who makes the wood? Who gets the graphite? Who makes the metal that goes around the eraser? Who makes the eraser itself? Who's responsible for shipping all of those pieces to the various factories where they're produced and assembled into a pencil? Who supplies the workers with the necessary machines to go make the pencils? Who gets those pencils to market? And then finally having those ending up in your store and in you or your child's hands. The complexity of the market. A bunch of people are solving these problems that no any one person or any one committee could possibly think about, at least doing so effectively. They're doing this for profit motive, and we don't need to have a central government set these things into motion. There's a kid's version of this too, called Nobody Knows How to Make a Pizza, which I bought. It's a little bit advanced for my infant son, but eventually it's a very good book. Same thing. It describes the process of making a pizza. No one person is responsible for every single element that goes into it. It takes a lot of people, thousands of people, to make something as simple as a pizza. And so when people think about, well, we'll just put up some protectionist walls and that will force us to make everything domestically, that is a very bad way of going about things, because the central planners and Trump and his protectionist Republicans are just as bad about this as Biden and his protectionist nonsense. These central planners think that we can, someone will figure it out. Well, these people haven't figured it out. And sometimes that means getting stuff from overseas. Sometimes that makes the most sense. Sometimes it doesn't. And the reason why a lot of times it makes the most sense to get stuff from overseas is because domestic regulations make it too difficult to do that around here. Now, Tim says, the Amish got you covered from start to finish. They'll cut the trees. They'll mill the lumber. They'll send you a letter when you're ready. Yeah, Tim, I saw your Facebook post about that. That's I didn't know they used a letter. Well, I guess that makes sense. Maybe not going to send you an email about it. But yeah, no, if they're able to do all that thing, that's great. That's not possible for most folks. And if you can do that and get a good deal on it, that's awesome. So that's one way of handling this, right? Is we can start to build up domestic manufacturing, and that's going to require bringing down tariffs. Ironically, it's making it easier to source materials wherever makes sense, and then making it easier to hire workers, making it easier to build a new factory in some place. I know there's always fights about zoning and environmental impact and all this stuff, this whole rigmarole, which no matter how well intentioned, does make it more difficult for someone to open up a facility that would be able to manufacture stuff. And that's why it's difficult for a lot of manufacturers to continue operating in New York State. And we've talked about some of the challenges associated with that, both from the government and from COVID, with when we had Bob Confer on a while ago. And if you haven't listened to that episode, check that out. But there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that, like the new the new safety regulations in the HEROES Act. make things a little bit more difficult too. There's great information too about just supply challenges. All this stuff goes into this, and some of it's market related, but a lot of it's government related. And if we can control that, if we can make an impact on the government related side, why not do that? Why not eliminate those bottlenecks? No, it doesn't solve all of the market problems, but very smart people are trying to solve the market problems. And there's two interesting things that are coming out of this whole bottleneck in the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach. One is, well, people are saying, well, this is so expensive now. What if we found an alternative to this? What if we found a different way to get stuff in some of the biggest stores in the U.S., looking at that holiday shopping time, they're like, we're gonna figure it out. Doesn't matter. We're not gonna let this stop us from you doing your Christmas shopping with us. You know, good for them. Appreciate the hustle. You know, I know they're making more money, but I got an issue with companies making money. I'm a capitalist. Why would I be mad about that? And the other one too is like there's a good regulatory takedown that we could make. A good regulatory there's a law that we could remove that would immediately reduce the cost of shipping, but especially in places like Hawaii and Puerto Rico. We could eliminate the Jones Act. So when we come back, I'll talk about eliminating the Jones Act. And we'll talk about what some of these big companies are doing now that they're having trouble getting stuff through these big ports. What's the alternative? And does it make sense? Thanks again for joining us here on Free Solution. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Need help with health insurance? The Greece Regional Chamber provides assistance with health insurance for businesses, nonprofits, families, and individuals throughout our region. We pride ourselves on the personalized service that we provide for our clients. Let us help you find health insurance plans that fit your needs and navigate the paperwork. Greece Chamber Benefit Partners, located at 2402 Westridge Road in Rochester, New York, offers a broad range of medical insurance plans for businesses, nonprofits, individuals, and families throughout the greater Rochester Finger Lakes region, working with insurance companies including Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, Univera, and MVP Healthcare. We can also help you access insurance plans through the New York State of Health, the official health plan marketplace. Again, you do not need to live or work in Greece to utilize our brokerage services. We serve the greater Rochester Finger Lakes region of New York State. Visit greecechamber.org to sign up for one of our free health insurance information sessions or schedule an appointment with one of our licensed brokers. Call 585-227-7272. 585-227-7272.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
A free solution.
welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us here on WYSL. If you're listening there live here until 1 o'clock, give us a call, 866-552-1009. It's 866-552-1009 if you want to chat about. We're talking about getting stuff. How do we get stuff into our stores, and what barriers are there to getting that stuff? So there's two solutions. Well, there's many solutions to this, but two solutions that I want to highlight here today. And one is the Jones Act. So the Jones Act, which really only libertarians and free market advocates talk about, but the Jones Act, it says that if you have a shipping vessel that's going from one American port to another, it has to fly an American flag. It has to be an American crewed vessel. And unfortunately, what that does is it makes shipping anything from one American port to another extremely expensive. So if you want to get something from Long Beach to Hawaii, it has to be on an American flagged vessel. If you want to get something from Miami to Puerto Rico, has to be on a vessel, an American ship. And even though it could be much less expensive to have a ship with another flag, with a international crew, whatever, even though we often, sometimes of emergency, we did that after Puerto Rico. Well, we've done that several times after Puerto Rico has been hit by hurricanes. We continue to keep this outdated law in place. There is no reason for us to not suspend the Jones Act at this point, because that opens up another opportunity for us again. If it might make more sense for us to ship goods between one American port to another instead of having to have that stuff shipped out overseas. If you want to get something from New York to Seattle, is it better to do it by freight rail? Is it better to do it by truck? Is it better to do it by ship? I don't know. But I would like people to have the option to do that as inexpensively as possible. And I'll read off some stats from Tim here. So save me the time of pulling up my tab for that. But Tim says American-made barges cost 3 times as much as foreign-made barges, 90 million, give or take, for a foreign bill to almost 300 million for an American-made barge, because it has to be both made and flagged in the United States. And he's citing Colin Gabbro from the Cato Institute. And I think Tim had him and some other folks from the Libertarian Party of New York had maybe it was this guy from the Cato Institute. They had someone on to talk about the Jones Act specifically. I'm sure we could do a whole show on this, but I want to mention that as one of the solutions. If you haven't heard the Jones Act and why it's a huge problem, look it up. Look up the work that the Cato Institute is doing on it. They're doing incredible stuff there. And just know that that's adding a massive amount of cost, particularly to our friends in Hawaii and Puerto Rico. That's where it's especially bad, but also it adds to our costs everywhere else too, because sometimes, again, maybe it makes more sense for us to put stuff on a container ship and ship it from New York to Miami and vice versa, or from Seattle to Long Beach and vice versa. Maybe it makes sense to do that. But if you don't have that option, if it has to be on American made and flagged ships, that adds a ton of cost to it. So what do we need instead? Well, we either need to put more on trucking, which is a little bit less efficient than doing it by sea, and also, adds more pollution to the atmosphere, if that's the thing you care about, or do it by freight rail, which requires its own infrastructure investment and whatnot, and has its own logistical issues right now with backups where people are unable to unload the freight rail because of issues with trucking and all this other stuff. So anyway, so that is one potential solution. Get rid of the Jones Act. Great impact on the cost of our shipping industry, something that I don't understand why we still have it. So the other one too, which is, this one's a little bit more, it's more interesting. It's outside the box. So it's all of these big companies like the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costcos, all those folks, they're like, all right, we need to get this stuff in either way. Like, we can't We can't have all of our stuff held up at Long Beach. And again, this isn't just affecting the big guys, too. I work with several small businesses now who are like, I'm trying to track my stuff, and it's stuck at the port at Long Beach now. Small businesses, small like e-commerce businesses. It's wild how much I've seen this across like the clients I work with. So it's interesting to see how that politics and day-to-day work overlap. So they're like, all right, we can't get a big ship, these big efficient ships. We can't get that stuff onto it. We're unable to get space for it. We're not able to get that stuff offloaded. The port's all clogged up. The rail system over there is all clogged up. What do we do instead? Well, they've started chartering smaller ones, smaller vessels to carry shipping containers into ports that can't handle the big places that Long Beach can, places like Long Beach and Miami and stuff. Because the issue is that these massive ships like can't go into most ports. They in order to do that, they've got to have these deep water ports. You've got to dredge out a bunch of material. You know, the limits on how much stuff we can put on ocean going vessels is limited in part by being able to get them to shore. Or getting them close enough where it's economically efficient to unload them and then, you know, get the stuff to a hub to get it out all over the country. So what they're doing, again, these big retailers, is they're saying, all right, we'll charge some smaller ships and we'll get them to ports that can't necessarily do deep water stuff, but they can do enough. And these ports aren't clogged up because of all the various reasons that I've outlined earlier. And we'll get them there. And that's way more expensive. And so you're probably going to see that reflected in the price of the stuff that you're going to be buying this year. But it is an interesting way to do things because that's the market at work. The market says we still need to make a profit on this. We still need to get this stuff that people want. We think that people will pay the higher prices for this stuff. And so we're going to get that to other ports. Again, that's reflected in that's going to be part of what we see as part of inflation. A bunch of these complex issues go into this. A lot of government regulation that we could get out of the way that could lower the cost of doing this stuff. That is what goes into what's going to make Christmas a little bit harder for folks. Again, I don't blame the big retailers for doing this stuff. They're like, well, we'd rather have this stuff than not. So we'd rather have it more expensive and get it in so they can keep their workers employed. They can keep making their money. Nothing wrong with that. But markets find a way. And unfortunately, it's going to get, if we don't find what we have, if we don't implement some of the policy solutions that we've talked about today, and many more that I do not have the time to talk about, if we don't do this, prices are going to keep going up and up and up. Oh, excuse me. And that is something I'd hate to see. Something you'd think politicians would be motivated to start finding solutions for and implementing solutions for immediately. That's something that you can demand of our politicians at the federal level, at the state level, thinking about ways to make it easier for domestic manufacturers to emerge in your state, your region, repealing the Jones Act, and finding new and easier ways to get smaller vessels in ports that can't handle the deep water stuff. All right, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. I will be back on Wednesday. Talk to you then.